but I mean, I remember 4 years ago when the whole kind of like the subprime scandal started, was all this talk about how capitalism didn't work and how, you know, the system was failing. And even the political leaders were all talking about, well, we need to, you know, rein in the speculators and change the stock market. But somehow, along the way, they've forgotten about it. And now the whole debate is not about the system doesn't work, it's about austerity and how we have to pay for it. And nobody ever is actually talking about those initial kind of like even attempts of reform anymore, you know. So sorry, I want to change it back. So I don't want to talk about austerity, I want to talk about how the system doesn't work, because it's so obvious that it's not working for anybody.
Yeah, just we've got getting into a bit of analysis of the outcome of the vote. Well, I do think Donald's right, that we worked hard in this constituency and we managed to shift the vote to a no, only just about, but we managed to shift it to a no. But I think there's another thing at play, and this is where I think the class, if you like, the distinct class differences come in. And that is, if you look at somewhere like Cherry Orchard that voted 90% against, 90%, you know, it's huge. I went to my doctor that day, I had to get a bit of cream or something, and he's a consultant, well off, you know, and he says to me, what do you think? He knows I'm a cancer, he's always talking about it to me. What do you think? I said, well, obviously I'm voting no. I said, what are you doing? He says, I really don't know what to do. And I said, well, there you go, you're well off, you have all the privileges, you're well educated, and you don't know what to do. And he says, but you know what gets me? That all day long they're talking about big turnouts in the poorer areas, and it's looking like no vote in the most marginalised, most poor areas. See, I would have thought, he said, that they'd be the very people who'd vote yes, because the threat is always against that there won't be enough money to pay the social welfare. And that tells you something, doesn't it? The people, the working class people, don't believe them. They don't buy their crap, despite the fact that Dennis O'Brien controls and owns the media, and they shoved all this gift down our throats. People just didn't believe them. They said, we don't believe you. You've cut this, that, and the other. You've driven us into the ground. We don't believe you that this is going to work. And so they rejected them, you know, out of anger and disbelief. And I think, yes, we do help, but then, as Kieran said earlier, we learn from the class and listen to what they're saying. They're very angry. 90% vote in Ballyfermot overall, or 75% overall, 90% in Cherry Orchard, tells you something. That was repeated in North Clondalkin, in parts of Limerick, in some of the most destitute areas, and that does show that people do not believe their crap. So I think we should start from that and understand that that has shifted. Something has shifted. Something smells quite different in Ireland than it ever did before. It is in the big working class areas, yeah.
Going on around, say, Germany, or say around Galway, where you're from, you mightn't have as good. You know what I mean? So it's kind of just get that in every area.
Yeah. Absolutely. You couldn't set it better yourself.
Just, I wouldn't advise anyone getting into an argument with the doctor if he's right down the prescription. That's not advisable. I'm going to ask Kieran on John's point and the point about subprime.
Just first of all, the civil society thing, I actually agree with you, right? I mean, I think that the unions are weaker today, and if you just had a purely strategy of just working inside the union, you get it wrong. And if you look, for example, at the Desh School issue, why was Rory Quinn beaten on the Desh School issue? It was because some good trade unionists and the teachers, the INPO principally, got organised, but also mainly it was the community organisations in Ballymun, Tala and so on, organised the buses and brought down a huge demonstration. So, I mean, that shows you the model for the future. If you just do it union-wise, you won't go very far. In fact, a lot of people are demoralised. But it's also true that by bringing the two together, you can really do damage to the system. I'd say that, right? On the media, just quickly, I agree with you. I mean, what's happened again? Of course, I'm not going to report it early. What's happened this week? One man, right? Dennis O'Brien. Note that name, Dennis O'Brien. He doesn't even live in this country. He says. He says he lives in Portugal, in Portugal or Malta. So he doesn't have to pay taxes here. He now owns The Sunday Independent, the Evening Herald, 98 FM, News Talk, the Sunday World, and a few more, right? So about 90% of your newspapers you're going to read is coming from one person, Dennis O'Brien. And what does he do? He hates the left. In fact, he said, I put in something I wrote some time ago, he said, the problem with the Irish, he says, is they're always giving out. They're talking shite, that's the word to use. They're talking shite, giving out, begrudging and so on. He hates any idea of equality. And what he does then is, the way it works, just be clear about it, a slant is given. There's always a slant given. So I'll give you an example. This is maybe more controversial thing. But the Mick Wallace thing, right? I'm totally against Mick Wallace, right? I'm totally against anybody putting his hand into the till, taking taxes paid by people who, to buy an apartment, he takes, I don't care whether he's Fine Gael or left wing, I'm totally against it, right? But you look at the slant of the newspapers, you'd think Mick Wallace was a member of the Socialist Workers' Party. You'd think he was in the United Left Alliance. We've nothing to do with Mick Wallace, right? We've got people down in Wexford, they're involved in the battle with Mick Wallace. We can't be, what are they on about? So they try to give a slant to it. Or just to say again, the way it works in RTE is, if you're on RTE, I'll tell you a simple thing, if you're ever on RTE, they sometimes ask beforehand, and what answer are you going to give? I'm telling you the truth. I was on that one Sunday. So what answers will you give, Kieran? Of course, I've got to play along. You've got to tell them more or less what their answers are. And then you'll notice the interview always comes back on the left. They never gang up against the right. This is how the media work. Now, the point that Brid says is important. That's how they work. More and more people are knowing about it. And as somebody said over here, if you have people on the ground who are organising and says, the fiscal treaty is bad news for working class people, resist the household charges, no matter what the media say, we will get solidarity against it. That's where again goes back to your point about civil society.
Okay, just residual information, Portugal got knocked out of the European Cup. Dennis O'Brien now lives in Spain. Have everyone on chair to have you down, okay? Alice, could you?
Very brief. I just think that this constituency didn't swallow the crap that came through. They withstood all the pressure. And the other thing we have to look at is where we're strong. Again, the papers won't add the numbers together. When we think of all people on all the various issues that have come out on the street, and the last two protests, which was against Fine Gael and the other thing down in Galway, the Labour Party, I mean, the sense that people had power, that people sense that they had by marching down the street, you're marching with people who are like-minded. And I suppose we would look at that as socialists, as that's real democracy. That's people getting out and saying, I might have voted for you, but I didn't vote for what you're doing. So listen to me. They won't listen to us, so we have to make them hear us. So I think that's the really important thing, is that, you know, we go to protest outside the door. History is a slow process, and if you think back 10 years ago, we're fighting and we're actually bringing more and more people with us, because more and more people realise that the Fine Gael, Labour, Fianna Fáil are not fighting for us. They are not on our side, and particularly Labour isn't on our side, but we are many, they are few. So we have to build up our confidence, and the protest outside the door will be the beginning, and then stand up to the intimidation we're going to get over the household charge and the water meters. There's battles to be fought, but remember, we are many and they are few. And will there be funds for that?
Yeah, so we're going to be big campaign, getting that information out. The household campaign should be put on our post as well. There'll be several groups. The 18th.
Yes, yeah,
The 18th ban on education,
we want to bring everybody into it, but we're kind of initiating through the household tax campaign, because we now have such a great network of people all over the country.
So just a bit of housekeeping before we go on. There's a few speakers waiting. If you like what you hear, just put your name and address down there, email, telephone number, we'll keep you in touch as the meeting goes along. No, you don't have to live in this car, this is obviously, hopefully, we do hope to get a campaign or a network going in each car, but anyone who attended and will attend further meetings, we just like to say we're going to pass it on. I also want to highlight this is a time for revolution. There's been several talks on about this topic. I think we all agree here that the answer is a resounding yes. It was no last week, it's yes this week. And that's Richard Boyd Barrett and of course Eamon McCann, they're coming in from across the border. And that's at 8 p.m. on Thursday the 24th, and it's in Wynn's Hotel. Very good, both those speakers are very, very interested. There is this, so grab a leaflet there. Kieran, will you just pass that announced to the...
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Charlie, it's great to see you back. You've been off your feet for a couple of days, and brilliant to have you back. Excellent.
The issue of tax on the rich came up a lot at meetings during fiscal treaty. And it wasn't just a slogan. I mean, there's a lot of facts and figures used to show the extent of the wealth that's in the hands of the wealthy in this country. And if it had been pushed to a higher level by all those concerned in the campaign, it could have went a long way towards getting more no votes. As it stood, it did get a lot of no votes, considering we were up against not only the main parties, Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, Labour, but the unions, half the trade union movement, including SIPTU. So we were up against enormous odds, and to get a 40% is no mean achievement. And it was to do with the fantastic meetings that Brid spoke about, that were held throughout the country, where there were thousands all over the country from the meetings. So, I mean, you know, taxing the wealthy. Those facts and figures, I think, we should use them more. We should come out and demand that the government publish the actual extent of the wealth, the money, the wealth that's in the country, using those figures, because their figures are got from different bodies spread the world in terms of the wealth that exists.
Thanks very much, Shirley. Thanks very much. Well, James, when you go to the toilet,